Hi guys, it's Hinda and welcome to Cooking Fantasies. In today's video, I will be showing you how to make caramel and coffee mousse cake. If you are a coffee lover, I can guarantee you that you're gonna love this dessert because this combination of flavors and textures is just heavenly. So this cake will consist of an almond biscuit as a base, a crispy layer made of lacy crepes, caramel and chocolate, a mousse layer aromatized with coffee and caramel, and finally we're gonna top it with a delicious caramel glazing in a toffee-like texture. So make sure to watch till the end for the full recipe and instructions, and I will also be providing you with some alternatives. And like always, I will be leaving you down in the description box all the ingredients you're gonna need in both the grams and cups measurements, so let's get baking. And we're gonna start first by making a delicious yet easy to make caramel sauce. On a medium to low heat in a saucepan, add the sugar and the water and allow them to cook until all the sugar has caramelized. Closing the saucepan while the sugar is caramelizing can help you prevent burnt sugar on the sides. As soon as all the sugar has melted and turned into a nice caramel, add the heavy cream while continuously stirring. And keep stirring until this foam that has formed kind of fades out. Then immediately remove it from the heat and add the batter that you have cut into small pieces. It should be cold, and then keep stirring until it melts completely. And then place your caramel sauce in a glass container. Make sure that it's heat proof and allow it to cool totally until we need it. Time to prepare the almond biscuits, which will make the base of the dessert. You can do this with a stand mixer or just with a hand mixer, it's not important. What matters is that the eggs should be in room temperature. This is very important to achieve a kind of airy texture. So mix the eggs with the sugar and the vanilla sugar if that's what you're using, or vanilla extract, and keep mixing until you have a kind of fluffy foamy texture that has at least doubled in size. And now we're gonna sift in the flour and the almond powder. And then gently fold them in using just your hands without any machine. If you have any almond left in your sieve, just go ahead and add them. By gently folding in the flour and the almond, you're gonna keep all the air we have incorporated while beating the eggs with the sugar. And this is how you get a fluffy and nice biscuit without adding any baking powder. And if you don't want to use any almond meal or flour, you can just substitute with the same quantity of normal flour. I have covered my baking tray with some parchment paper. I also used some oil because I want the parchment paper to stick on the baking tray gently and smooth, because this will prevent you from getting a kind of wrinkled cake. And then try to spread it as even as possible before baking it in a preheated oven to 175 degrees Celsius at 347 degrees Fahrenheit for about 14 to 15 minutes. And once out of the oven, and while it's still warm, not hot but warm, flip it over and try to gently peel off the parchment paper. And as you can see, the result is really amazing. This biscuit is so soft, delicious, it doesn't break, and you can easily work with it. And you can just perfectly freeze it until you need it if you want to make it in advance, or if you have leftovers from for this recipe, you can also just wrap them in plastic wrap and freeze them until you need them for other desserts. And of course, you can use any shape you like. You can make it circular, you can make it individual ones. The procedure is just the same. You're gonna be using the same techniques and you're gonna do the same steps. I went here for a rectangular kind of shape, so I'm using my mold to cut off a piece of the biscuit in the shape I will be using. And for the next step, we're going to be preparing the nice crunchy chocolate caramel layer. So do you remember the caramel we made in the beginning? Now grab it and take about 1 full tablespoon of it. Feuilletine flakes or lacy crepes are perfect to make crunchy layers because they do stay crunchy, they don't absorb much moist, and they go really nice with the mousse cakes. As fancy as they sound, they are really easy to make and worth the effort. I will leave you down a link in the description box if you want to check out a recipe of how to make your own feuilletine flakes. Alternatively, you can use butter wafers, which you can buy ready from the supermarket. So simply melt the chocolate and mix the flakes with the chocolate and the caramel and immediately spread them over the biscuit before they harden, because when the chocolate gets cold, of course everything will get hard, and you want this to happen on the biscuit. Then use the back of a spoon to spread it over the biscuit and try to cover it all and have it as even as possible. Then place it in the fridge until we need it again. For the main component of our cake, we're going to be making the coffee and caramel mousse. Start by soaking the gelatin sheets into cold water. Prepare the chocolate by chopping it into small pieces, as small as possible. Here we used white chocolate and milk chocolate because I find the combination of these two goes very nice and it complements the taste of caramel and coffee. Next we will be preparing a crème anglaise, which will make the base of our mousse. To the milk we will be adding about the third from the sugar we have already measured for the recipe. Then we're gonna add the vanilla sugar or vanilla extract, you can use whatever you prefer, and place it in a low to medium heat until it starts simmering. Meanwhile, add the rest of the sugar to the egg yolks and whisk them together until the mixture whitens. This might take some effort, so to make it faster you can also use an electric whisker or a mixer. As soon as the milk starts simmering and you start to see little bubbles on the sides, remove it from the heat and add it to the sugar and egg yolks mixture and whisk everything together. Once everything is mixed and you don't feel any sugar grains anymore in the mixture, pour it back into the saucepan on a medium to low heat and keep whisking continuously. It is again very important that the heat is not too high. We don't want to make a custard cream or crème pâtissière. We only try to make a crème anglaise, which means as soon as it starts thickening little by little, and you can do the test by running your finger in a spoon and the two lines shouldn't meet, then it's already ready and remove it immediately from the heat. Immediately add the chopped chocolate, squeeze the gelatin sheets from the water and add them also. And also we're gonna add the coffee and the caramel. I used here instant coffee. You can use instant espresso powder, you can use instant coffee, use whatever you prefer. And of course this is the caramel we have prepared at the beginning, which we're gonna be using here again to aromatize the mousse. Keep stirring until everything is well combined, then allow it to cool on the side and let's prepare our whipped cream. So beat the heavy cream, that should be very cold, right out of the fridge until you achieve a nice creamy texture. Now start folding the whipped cream into the other crème anglaise. We have prepared about 2 big tablespoons or third a cup at the time. And you want to do this gently using a spatula in a kind of circular motions. And as I said before, starting to fold in your whipped cream, the cream should be already cool to at least room temperature and should be really smooth. And if you have noticed that there are still some grains of coffee or chocolate that have not totally melted, you can sieve it before starting to fold in the whipped cream. By the time you have folded in all the whipped cream, you will end up with this nice texture that you should pour over the cake as soon as you take it out of the fridge. And then place it in the freezer to freeze for at least 4 hours before we add the next layer. And for the last layer, let's prepare the caramel glaze. Soak the gelatin sheets into cold water and keep them on the side. Here I will be using some cornstarch, so what you're going to do is take about 1 tablespoon to 2 from the water you have measured for the recipe and use it to melt the cornstarch in it. To make the dry caramel, first place the sugar in a saucepan on a medium to low heat and allow it to totally caramelize. Once all the sugar has melted, add the rest of the water that you have already boiled, and you have to be very careful because this can burn if it touches your skin, and keep carefully stirring till the bubbles fade. At this point we should add the cornstarch, but you want to give it a quick stir and make sure it's not stuck to the bottom before you add it to your caramel. Then immediately add the heavy cream also, that should be cold, and keep stirring everything together. And this is actually the same caramel glaze recipe I've used to make these beautiful desserts. It's caramelized walnuts with mascarpone and caramel glazing with a nice chocolate cheesecake, This dessert is a must try. Go ahead, try it. I will leave you down the link in the description box. It takes about 1 minute or even less until this mixture starts thickening, and then remove it from the heat immediately. Squeeze the gelatin sheets from all the water, add them to the glaze and keep stirring until they completely melt. Now sieve the caramel glaze into a clean container. This helps remove air bubbles as well as gelatin particles that might have not melted. Then allow it to cool to about 27 to 28 degrees Celsius, that's about 80 degrees Fahrenheit, before you pour it on the cake that should be right out of the freezer. And then place it again in the fridge for at least a couple hours for the glaze to set before you remove it. Now that all the layers have had enough time to set, it's time to remove the frame, and using a torch makes this easier. If you don't have a torch, you can use either a hairdryer or a towel that you have soaked in hot water, squeezed, and wrap the frame in it. To decorate the cake, this is very personal and optional. You can go for whatever you like. I personally decorated with some caramelized almonds, some chocolate mocha beans, and also some feuilletine that was left from the recipe. Because I think this combination kind of reminds everything what's inside the cake. Alternatively, you can cut the cake into small squares, decorate them individually, and present them or serve them as petit fours. This dessert definitely has place in one of my favorite desserts list because it really tastes amazing. I hope you will try it. I'm sure you will love it. If you still have any questions regarding the recipe, don't hesitate to ask me down in the comment section and I will get back to you. I thank you for watching and I hope you enjoyed the video. If so, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more recipes and see you soon with a new video. Happy baking!